Right now at 11:30, we continue to monitor the Hurricane Dorian as it churns in the Atlantic. A Category 4 storm, really powerful, headed toward Florida. Exactly where it will hit, still quite uncertain right now. But all of Florida, of course, is bracing for any possible landfall, and many are taking this threat quite seriously.
Our chief certified meteorologist, Betty Davis, and hurricane specialist Brian Norcross are both in the Weather Authority Center with the very latest on Dorian's track right now.
Hi, everyone. Of course, we're over here looking at more information, but just to bring you up to speed, 140 miles per hour, Category 4 hurricane, pressure 948 millibars, moving west-northwest at 10 miles per hour, and we were just checking on the diameter of that eye, actually.
Right, and so we've seen the curve that was expected as high pressure is pushing down from the north, and that's taking it in the direction of the northern Bahamas, so it's not able to get any farther north. We also see on this, we can see the clouds up here moving this way. We also have seen some clouds down here pushing up toward it, which may be cutting underneath there, and when we look at it close up, you can see in here, look right in here, you see a little bit of deformity in there, and you know, that's just a sign that it's not a pristine environment, but the core is so solid that it's fighting everything off. It's not getting into the core.
No, it's not. That eye.
And the eye is shrinking, so now down to 14 miles across from the latest observation. When the eye shrinks, the skater spins faster. So it's conservation of angular momentum is the physical term that is making the storm go faster and faster. 140 was the latest. I'm thinking it's probably actually even stronger than that right now.
Right, and it's forecast to get stronger as it continues toward the west-northwest, headed toward the northwest Bahamas.
Well, what's going to happen in here, at some point, it's going to exceed what it can do with that small eye. That eye is going to get too small, and then a new eye is going to form out here and cut off that small one, and then the intensity is going to weaken. So even though they have 150, 150, 145, 145, it's really possible that it goes up and down, hopefully more down than up, but as it goes down, it gets bigger, and that involves more islands, longer duration,
right.
All bad.
It's just not a good situation for the northwest Bahamas.
No, it really, I mean, we are very, very fearful. And remember, they got hit just 3 years ago badly in Grand Bahama, especially by Hurricane Matthew. And so, you know, I'm sure that not all of that has even been repaired. All right, here we are with our situation here.
Let's inspect the cone, because everyone wants to know, is it a good sign now that we see a part of Miami-Dade bleeding outside the cone?
Yes, it's good, because two things have happened. One is the storm is a little bit closer to us, so the cone is beginning to shrink a little bit. But the other is that they have lifted the cone and moved it a little to the right. So now there's a little more space out here and possibilities of tracks offshore. They've also sped it up just a bit so that now you see the bigger gap between Monday evening and Tuesday evening. So the thinking is, what's happening, if you've been following us about the high pressure blocking it and the gap in the high pressure, is that that gap is substantial and a little stronger gap. So it kind of pulls the storm north. Technically speaking, it's low pressure up there that's pulling the storm north through that gap. So they've sped it up some here, which is good. The faster it does what it's going to do, the better we like it, because it'll be around us the less time.
Exactly.
Right?
We can get back to business as
Right.
usual.
But still, you're talking about the winds picking up sometime late on Sunday. Monday, it's, you know, in our vicinity. Look, it's not that far. So if the storm is like this, you know, that's involving us on the fringes of it, and then all day Monday. Why isn't that erased? All day Monday and into Tuesday, and it's pulling away by Tuesday evening. So this is still a pretty long duration event for us here.
So though we are encouraged, we still have to account for the fact that we could feel something from Dorian as it's nearby or coming close.
And I think that even though this is a model run from this morning for the European, I think this is really indicative of what we can expect and what, unfortunately, our friends in the northern Bahamas can expect, and then the people in the coast of Florida north of us. Here it comes. Here it comes to the Bahamas, and then it slows down and drags across the northern Bahamas, and then begins the move to the north. So that accentuates the amount of time that the water is piled against the Florida coast. because the winds come like that. And it also, of course, that's why we say it's going to take a couple days for it to clear us, even though we're on the fringe down here, if something like that happens. But it just, first of all, the winds come from the north, and then eventually they come from the south over the northern Bahamas. It's daunting, really, to think about. The GFS model, same thing, comes fast, slows down over the Bahamas, then creeps to the north. The GFS closer to the coast on this run, but in any case, same idea. And the two of them together, basically in the same space, Tuesday evening, moving away from us. Things getting better by Wednesday. They should be gone. What's your forecast for Wednesday? Is it going to quit raining?
You got to wait for the 7-day planner.
All right, I will. All right, I will. So here's the other thing, Betty, that you were talking about in the office.
Yes, we were talking about how it's already such a strong system, and it stays over those warm waters of the Atlantic. And then, of course, the Gulf Stream. Once it gets over there, what happens? And is that more fuel for Dorian? And then you mentioned that maybe it doesn't quite get there. Maybe it starts to turn away.
Right. The thing about the Gulf Stream
area
is it's not just warm. I mean, the water here is all warm. As a matter of fact, it's probably warmer out here. But here it is deep and warm. So that if a hurricane, of course, stirs up the water like crazy, right? But here it just stirs up warm water, right? Where out here it might stir up cooler water. On the other side of the Bahamas, if you've ever been to Harbor Island or any island out there, the water is actually cooler out there. That's what makes the east side of the Bahamas actually cooler than it is in South Florida, because the water is cooler. So if the storm comes along and then gets in the Gulf Stream, then it can be very, very strong. And Hurricane Andrew, the Gulf Stream was what kicked it to increase in intensity as it came ashore. So it was actually weaker here over the Bahamas than it was just as it was coming ashore in Homestead. So the Gulf Stream is something we'll keep in mind down the road, but the point is it's expected to be a very strong hurricane in the vicinity of Florida coming up at the first part of next week, really making the approach to Florida on Monday of next week. Calvin?
All right, thanks a lot to Brian and Betty. Our